The
Right.
second part, which is just mind blowing right now, mind blowing. Okay. For those of us that understand depreciation, right? If you buy real estate, you can do depreciation of those real estates over time, right?
Right.
Land also has its own equivalent of it. It's crazy, I know. We have a program called Legacy Nutrient Depreciation, right?
Okay.
And it's a program that you can actually depreciate your soil, the nutrients in your soil. You can make a case that, okay, you have excess nutrient in the soil when you bought it, so I want to depreciate it over time. I know you're thinking, okay, what does that mean? This is crazy. What are you guys talking about? Okay, I'm not here to argue with the law. I'm just saying it's a provision in the tax code. I believe tax code 167, 168, then I think 180, then 611, couple of tax code that allows us to depreciate part of your land. So that means, let me give an example. If you have
Mm-hmm.
$100,000 land and we do a soil sample, we have a team that's their job, a soil sample that would say, out of your land, you have a 10-acre land, you bought for 100,000. Out of that land, for 1 acre, I can depreciate the value I've calculated is, let's say, $1,000. So technically, you have $10,000 you can depreciate over the life of you owning that land. So that means your next year, you can get $10,000 tax credit that you can roll to your personal. Okay, so you have 100,000, right? Asset. But now, because I've said, okay, and we release all our land to farmers, so we maintain that for you, no big deal. We have a
Right.
lot of farmers waiting to do that. That's not a big deal for us, okay? So now, but now you're getting tax credit. So now you're
Right.
going to pay less $10,000 to the IRS the
Right.
following year. You can
Right.
split it to 3 years, sometimes 7 years. However you want to do it, you can split it. And we'll give you the documentation once we work with these folks, and they will just give you the document, you take it to the your tax attorney, and they would know what to do most of the time. We don't touch that, but you have the documentation, the sample of the soil test, all the reports. So in case you're audited, all the evidence and documents it's there that you can use to show that this is the data you have. So that's amazing. Now, again, most people don't know about that, but we offer that program in our community to make you very comfortable also in terms of, okay, you're not just buying a land that you cannot
Right.
write off. You can write off land.
Right.
Okay? You can write off land. So let me pause for any question.
No, that's amazing. Now, is that only available in Texas, or is you guys? I know you guys are focused in Texas, but is that privilege is available everywhere in U.S. land, or is it just in on Texas only?
So the legacy nutrient deduction program is all across the US. Believe
Okay.
it or not, it's a US thing.
Okay.
However, because we are based in Texas at the moment, but it's a US thing. It's everywhere in
Okay.
the US, something you can use, and it's under the tax code of IRS. So you can actually, it's US, everywhere in the US, you can use it.
Now, let me ask you. I know you talk about the data points when actually thinking about buying the land. One of the most important thing is just analyzing and making sense of the data points, right? But when you evaluating a land for investment, what are the key things that you look for that most people actually miss?
Okay. Top on the list, the survey. You have to make sure, you have the copy of the survey, right? Because it will speak a lot of volume in terms of the borderline. What are the potential issues there? You're going to check things like the road easement in general. The
Okay.
road easement is important because you're thinking and saying, now, a lot of people want to buy land. Like I said, we give you peace of mind. That's all we do, really. If you go buy a land that is just without the right road easement, it's an unattractive land. People would not really, because think and say to yourself, what about if I decide I want to subdivide this land in the future for
Right.
a developer? Think from that
Right.
angle when you buy land, right? So
Right.
that's a big one. Of course, you're checking to see if it's in a flood zone, right? You're checking to see if there are potential imminent domain concern. Maybe there's a high voltage power line passing through. And nothing wrong with that if that is what you're looking for. Some people use that if they're buying data center location, right? But
Right.
if you're buying for residential, probably you don't want to do that, right? Because you're thinking, oh, this would, take some of my road or
Right.
some of my land. So you're thinking along that also, right? But those are some big heavy hitters for us that, okay, are we checking if there's a flood zone? Do we have appropriate road easement there for the land I'm buying? And I'm checking if there are potential imminent domain there issues. I'm looking at the survey. I'm checking the details sometimes also in terms of if there's a pipeline there that is
Right.
active. You have to
Right.
check all of those things. I mean, and we also speak to the neighbors around us before we buy an asset. If there are any concerns, then we have farmers that work with us also all through our process. But those are some key points I would say we look
Right.
out for. Of course, some other fundamentals are going to be universal. People might say do a soil test. We always do phase one test, ESA. And the reason we do that is one, for the purpose of the deduction program, the legacy environment, nutrient development deduction program. So we do that for that reason for sure before we buy asset. Now, sometimes you might still do the soil sampling for other reasons. Let me give an example. One of our
Okay.
assets we bought in the past, we found out the city was popular for keeping prisoners of war in the 60s. Because of that, we were kind of a little bit
Okay.
suspicious that if they kept soldiers there, were they using it for activities like shooting ranges? Were they using chemicals there? Were they detonating firearms there or anything like that? So we're kind of concerned to say, okay, do we need to let's do some testing to make sure, the soil is still good. Even though we knew
Okay.
the soil should be good because they were planting there already and they were also
Right.
using it for livestock. But despite that, we'll still go ahead and
Okay.
just go and test it. Yes.
So what happens if you want to purchase the land and you don't intend on actually leasing it out to farmers, and you want to keep it yourself, and maybe long term just building, or just giving it to a developer?
Oh, yeah.
Is there a
Oh, yeah.
difference?
Well, I mean, let's pause. When we buy, we recommend to our community. Ultimately, you decide what you want to do. We recommend
Okay.
keep it for at least minimum of 5 years before you
Okay.
consider selling. Now, if you buy and say, you know what, I don't want to give it to a farmer. Remember again, the question is, can you maintain it? Most of us don't have time for that, really. So why do you want to waste time to maintain it yourself? 10 acres. 10 acres is a lot, or let's say 12 acres. It's like 7 football field.
Right.
I mean, except you're a full-time farmer, you can't
But
maintain
now,
it.
when you say maintaining, what is expected to be done on that land while it's sitting there?
So mostly you want to make sure it's cleaned. You're
Okay.
clearing it for, if you say it's for agric or you're using it for A, it means that you're also um, making sure you're planting A there, or you have livestock there, or you are
Okay.
planting certain crops there. Now, if you don't do
Okay.
that, the challenge
Okay.
is if there's an audit, sometimes cities fly drones now. They can check your city and see if you're not using it for agric, and you
Okay.
can lose that status. And you
Okay.
don't want to lose that because the difference between you losing the status and not is quite a lot. So let's
Okay.
say what you would have paid 3,000 a year, you are paying $80.
Gotcha.
So the difference
Okay.
is quite significant. So you don't want to mess with that. So it's better you just let somebody maintain it. Now, I've had some of my customers or investors tell us that I want to actually use some of my land to farm
Right.
myself, not a lot,
Right.
maybe like 1 acre, 2 acre. If that is you, that's okay. We'll just speak to the farmers and they will work out an arrangement, keep some part for you to be doing your own farming. And sometimes you can work out an arrangement and say, hey, you can actually help me to maintain it, and they would help you to do the maintenance of your own crop too as you're doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned obviously 5 years at a minimum, right?
Yeah.
Is it historically, is 5 years the good amount of years for the land to gain value? Is that what it is?
The honest truth is that for most of our investment, they already gain value immediately because we buy, let's say I buy 300 acres, I subdivide. So you already come in with amazing equity already based
Okay.
on what you're getting. The reason we say 5 years is that from our data point, again,
Right.
full disclosure, we're not financial advisors. We're just telling you what we've seen as a trend. Is
Right.
generally within that time, there's a lot of development and infrastructure built going on right now. By that
Okay.
time, everything would have been fully built. Then
Okay.
one of the big cities we are in is in Gainesville, Texas. And why we're in Gainesville is there's a city called Sherman, Texas, amazing city right now, benefiting from $50 billion investment. So because of
Right.
that, every surrounding city is just exploding. So that's the
Right.
main catch around it. So yeah, it's a big one out there for us. So every infrastructure there is just expanding, expanding. So there's so much built right now. So you can
Right.
imagine if if you wait the next 3 years, when everything is fully built, it changes
Right.
the game.
Right.
Infrastructure is fully built. There's access to so many roads. As a matter of fact, the state of Texas is proposing building a loop around the city right now as we speak. So just a
Nice.
lot going on.
Nice.